Water and Sanitation Minister Senzo Mchunu is in Nelson Mandela Bay to assess the progress being made in averting day zero. Gqeberha and surrounds have been battling a devastating drought, made worse by water leaks and management problems. Today, the minister announced that over two-thirds of the more than 3,000 leaks in the city have been stopped, and they're making strides regarding drilling boreholes and the rerouting of water. But the crisis is by no means over. He's made another desperate appeal for residents to use less water. Let's get a view from the people living in and around the city. I'm joined now by Siyabulela Mama from the Nelson Mandela Bay Crisis Committee. Siyabulela, thank you so much for joining us. I wonder, first of all, do you and other citizens you speak to have confidence in the interventions that have been made by the National Water Department?
So good evening to you, Sally, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity. Well, first, Sally, let me say that, well, the implementation, the employing of the water boards to implement all these solutions have raised great eyebrows for us in the water crisis committee. So why? Because we understand the history of the water board and how for them it's mostly important to secure water for industry and big business. So that has been one. But for the most part of this, there's been what they call sabotage in the Orange River pipeline. And for that, they blame communities, forgetting that they've employed private companies to implement that. And for sabotaging, it means employing more private companies and tendering that, so that it's more profit for private companies. And communities have nothing to do with that, and they need water. And as we speak now, communities in Utenake have been enforced to use 50 milliliters of water, and they have implemented these water technologies to ensure that's happening. And yeah, so but yeah, that has been happening. But at the same time, in northern areas, and we saying this is victory for the Water Crisis Committee, which has been speaking against the water, what we call the water apartheid. That they now starting to bring in communal taps instead of the trucks, instead of bringing the trucks. Because what we've been seeing before was that there's been communal taps in the western suburbs, middle-class areas of Port Elizabeth. But the working-class northern areas have not been experiencing this. And what we're seeing, they're starting to build those communal taps through...
Yeah, I mean, that is, Siyabulela, that is really interesting. I mean, you make such a good point that there's still a difference between the haves and the have-nots, even when it comes to water, because we saw that the minister today said, please use less water. What I'm hearing you saying is that water is already being throttled in poorer areas. Am I right? Or is that across Gqeberha as well?
Yeah, so water in poor areas. I mean, Utenake. I'll speak on Utenake on this issue because it's a very interesting case that they put water limitations to it and the meters to ensure and to govern the 50 liters. But when you look at middle class suburban areas of Utenake, and this is really there are no any of these water technologies, and this is a community that has experienced, by the way, water cuts, greater water cuts, and what we've called a 4-month day zero in Utenig. But when you look at the middle class areas of Utenig, this has not been happening. But then there's also a very interesting part of this debate is that there's also the political aspect into it. There's also council, which is more focused not on the water issue, but on discussing who should be the next city manager and fighting against that.
You know, I mean, you're raising such an interesting point because we have covered some of the physical fights we've actually seen in the Nelson Mandela Bay City Council. Talk to me about who you would trust to intervene more. Do you think the local municipality of Nelson Mandela Bay and surrounds has a handle on getting this sorted out? Or do you have more trust in the National Department of Water? Because we've seen them coming in. The minister's there currently, I think, on his second visit. Do you think they are better positioned to actually sort this problem out?
So, actually, Sally, I think that the answer is not in people intervening to employ private companies to do the work, but it's about employing the people who have been trained. So there's been war on water leaks, and there have been people who have been trained for that. Bring back those people, because we also face a crisis of unemployment. So bring back those people.
But hang on a minute, I just got to jump in because these water leaks have been a problem for years. Suddenly, the National Minister comes in, and in a matter of weeks, they've sorted out 2/3 of the problem. So if the original water leaks, war on water leaks people were doing their job, surely this had been sorted out ages ago.
Yeah. So, one, these are people who've been trained to do this work, right? And what we're saying is, employ those people. This is part of the climate, 1 million climate jobs we've been campaigning for. So, and what we are against is that we face a problem of unemployment, which Nelson Mandela Bay has been suffering from, and not to mention the hunger and malnutrition that has come into this country. About 12 children have died from hunger and malnutrition. So we're not. So what we're saying is, this is also a crisis to bring about employment, right? And private companies are not the answer into solving this problem, because as much as they're saying they've solved water leaks, but we still have greater levels of water leaks as you go. And I don't know if you've seen the BBC report on this, but as you visit most of the areas in Nelson Mandela Bay, we still receive greater levels of water leaks. So we're saying there have been people who've been trained. Bring back those people to fix the water leaks as one of the solutions to this particular problem.
Pardon me. The point you're making really is that drought is going to be with us always, and we need to have sustainable, community-driven solutions to look after our natural resources. And you know, we've seen this in a lot of communities, that the chasm between communities and the politicians is just too wide, and there isn't enough trust and there isn't enough working together. So you raise really important points. And thank you very much for your time. Siyabulela Mama, he's from the Nelson Mandela Bay Crisis Committee, talking about water apartheid, and we've still got a long way to go.